Heather Hughes for TV.com. I've just watched a screener for Silk, and now I'm going to interview Rupert Penry Jones about his part in it. Obviously Silk is a new show. Can you explain to people who don't know much about the show who your character is and why you got involved with the show?
The show is a lawyer show, barristers, about barristers and clerks and their world, and the court cases are obviously very much part of that. I play Clive Reader, who's sort of the hotshot man at the chambers, the young gun who kind of is up for Silk along with Maxine's character, Martha. And they are battling it out for Silk, really. It sort of transpires through the show. And the difference, I suppose the difference between them is that Martha's character gets very sort of emotionally involved and cares about her clients, and Clive is just going to win, no matter what happens.
You always seem to take on roles that are the right side of the law. So you've done spies, you've done a policeman in Whitechapel, yeah. And this isn't the first time that you've been doing a law show either. Is there a particular appeal for you for that kind of role?
Well, I mean, to be honest, with this, when I heard Peter Moffat's name and another barrister show, I jumped at the chance because everyone involved in North Square felt very robbed that the show didn't go on. It was a very strange decision that it didn't go on. It should have been commissioned for more, and all the reviews, it won awards. It was an incredibly successful show, and so I felt very lucky to have a second bite of the apple, and it feels like a grown-up North Square, this, and it's slick and it's polished, and I think all of us, including Peter, have kind of gone on from 10 years ago when we did North Square, and it's great to be able to do it again. But in terms of being the good guy, when I first started acting, a lot of the time was playing the posh, nasty younger brother, or I was never really. It wasn't that he was against the law. He just wasn't never very nice. Clive's great because he's kind of nasty, but you kind of like him at the same time.
Yeah, because in the first episode you see him taking drugs.
Yes.
Which is quite unseen on TV at the moment.
Yeah, it is, I suppose. Yeah.
Particularly on the BBC, I suppose. But how do you think that will be taken by fans of crime drama?
Well, I mean, I think it would be naive to say that no barrister indulges in a bit of cocaine every now and then. So if they have a problem with it, well, we're just portraying what actually goes on, and it's not like you've got nudity and blood everywhere. It's just a little bit of glucose on screen, so I can't see why anyone would find it offensive, really.
Is it nice to play a character that has got a bit of a darker edge, shall we say?
Yeah, he's definitely not squeaky clean, and there's a lot of layers to him, and through playing him through the show, I was very much feeling out what kind of person he is, and I think the audience will feel the same when they're watching it. He's not easy to like, but he's not easy to hate. He's a real person, and he makes some bad decisions, but he's also kind of likeable too.
Having worked on North Square, do you think that's an advantage for now being in Silk?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a courtroom drama before, so I wasn't sort of feeling my way in the courtroom scenes, and I also knew how boring they are to shoot before we started. Suddenly remembered, actually, when we were doing North Square, everyone was like, God, never again, I'm never doing another law show again. Sort of 10 years later, I was sitting there in court thinking, God, now I remember why I said never again, because it is days and days and days of sitting there while it's like that big, when you do Miss Marple or a Poirot, everyone's sitting in the living room while they just take days to go around shooting every single character in the room.
Now, you're not in it that much in the first episode because Maxine Peake takes control of a lot of the episode.
Yeah.
Do we see more of your character?
Yeah, he grows through the show. I mean, also I was suffering from a fractured leg at the beginning. I broke my leg in soccer aid, so 6 weeks before we started shooting. So the first two episodes I was actually on crutches a lot of the time. So in the first episode, you see most of the time I'm actually sitting down or standing still. There's not much movement going on. And in the second episode, I'm on crutches the whole way through. So obviously they couldn't give me too much to do until I got off the crutches, really. So
the scene where your character falls down the stairs, was that written in so that you could be on the crutches for the second episode?
Absolutely.
Well done. So you've talked about your character and the relationship with Maxine Peake's character.
Yes.
Obviously, they're fighting to both get the same job, essentially. Only one of them can get Silk. So how does that develop as the series progresses?
Well, the pressure builds throughout because they both really want it, and the more things go wrong for them in court, especially Clive, if he makes a bad decision, or he gets himself into some very deep water, and he's panicking about his silk application, and it's all looking really good, and eventually it comes down to the last episode, and they're both waiting to find out, and you'll have to see, you'll have to wait and see.
Is there anything Clive wouldn't do to try and get it above?
No, I don't. That's a difficult question. I think it's very hard to know with Clive whether he's doing something for just one reason. I mean, a lot of the time he's got an ulterior motive, and he uses things throughout the show to help him towards Silk.
So, touching back on the first episode, there was quite a suspicious defendant who's involved in one of the cases, and he seems like he's got a bit of an arc going with the rest of the series, and his character stalking, as it appears, Maxine's. Does that play a part the whole way through the series, or is it just going to come in for a couple?
He comes in and out, yeah.
And how important is his part in the series?
It ends up having quite an effect, yes. I mean, he has an impact on Clive as well, which is quite a big impact on Clive. So, yeah, he's there all the way through, this sort of presence.
Do you get to do any action scenes within the show?
No. But I was just talking to Peter, and he said if we do a second series, he's going to have me on a motorbike, which would be great.
Do you miss it then, doing all those kind of scenes?
I don't know. I mean, I do love doing them, but I remember on Spooks there was a moment when I was behind a tree with a gun, sort of acting all being hunted down by someone, and I suddenly sort of had that break from what I stood outside myself and just thought, what the hell am I doing? There's something about standing with a gun going that I suddenly felt very ridiculous. So it's nice to go into more character-driven stuff rather than just sort of action-man stuff. But, I hope I'll be back doing chasing down bad guys again.
So do you think that Silk is likely to get a second season? What with Peter's?
I think in terms of, I think it's critically, I'd be very surprised if it doesn't do well, because I think it is very, very high end, but you just don't know what people are going to watch. And I was talking to Hilary, and she said it's very rare now for a drama of this type to get high viewing figures on the first series. So it's very up in the air. It's not going to be a high. I don't think it's going to get sort of 11 million viewers or anything. But so I hope it does more. I think it deserves to do more, and I think there's an awful lot more to come if it does do more. But you just don't know.
Yeah, because it's a shame with the way that North Square did end.
Exactly. We were all ready for North Square to go again. Everyone was so shocked because it had done so well.
Yeah, when we knew we were going to interview you, I put up on Twitter saying I'm going to interview Rupert Penry Jones. Has anybody got any questions? And a lot of them were, North Square. Is it going to be like North Square?
It's not like North Square because we're into a different era of, and certainly the way it looks, a different era of the way things are shot now. And having had shows like West Wing and Mad Men and things like that, it's a much more fluid movement in the way things are shot. Whereas when we did North Square, it was off the back of things like This Life, and there was very fast handheld camera movements, sort of. It kind of made you feel a bit sick, and it's not going to have that. It's much more filmic in the way it's shot, and so it's got a more grown-up feel about it. But it's the same writer, and it's got that feel to it. It's about the lawyer, the barristers, and the clerks, like North Square was.
I did find in the episode of North Square that there was one particular scene where it did the whole West Wing following you around. It was while you were in the offices with the chairs all around, and it lasted for, I'd say, about a minute or so.
Oh, really?
Are there a lot of scenes like that? Is it something that you find particularly challenging as an actor? Yeah, in Silk. Yeah.
They do. We've used the Silk. The set was created in such a way that they could do lots of Steadicam shots following out, and lots of walking and talking through different rooms and things. Like West Wing did. So there is quite a bit of that. But it's nice to be able to do it. It gives the shot and the scene an energy that it wouldn't have if we were just sitting around a table.